welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. Robin and I take tremendous amount of joy and pleasure and absolute honor to feature women week after week from different parts of the world, from different walks of life, with the singular focus of how we as women can come together and lift each other up. Research shows that the quality of life and the health and well-being of a woman is directly predicated on the quality of her sisterhood and her community of women. And this, more than anything else, requires us to step into the arena and lift each other up and support each other and inspire each other. You're going to love today's conversation because this is going to be about how do we inspire each other through sharing and storytelling and holding space for each other. And through this process, how we build a life that is truly supportive and nurturing for us. Because no matter how good of a husband we have, the quality of the marriage is not what's important for a woman. The quality of the community of women is what is important for us. And this is not me saying, this is years of research panning out. So let's get started and explore how we can do this, build this, and thrive because of it. Take it away, Robin.
I am so excited to be here and give a very hearty welcome to Sarah Davison-Tracy, and she is with the organization Seeds of Exchange. And when I first heard of Seeds of Exchange, I thought it was like a food movement, a healthy food, growing food sustainably around the world. And it is not that at all, although I'm sure it would contribute to that. And so this is such an amazing and unusual and unique organization. So Sarah, tell us, what is Seeds of Exchange and how and why did you start it?
Well, the intro is perfect because that is what is at the heart of Seeds of Exchange is a couple of fundamental core beliefs. And one is that we all have a unique and one-of-a-kind way to make a difference in our neighborhoods, in our families, kind of in this local sector, and globally around the world in a way that has ripples, depending on our calling, ripples of impact around the world. And the second piece is that we fundamentally believe that though we each have this unique spark and gift and special something, we cannot bring that to bear in the world alone. We need people to inspire us, to remind us, to tell us what they see, how they. I mean, I have had so many times in my life where a sister and a brother has spoken into my life and pointed out something that I didn't yet see, that I was destined, called, equipped to do. So speaking those words of life and invitation and calling, and also just on a very tangible, practical level, it's about collaboration and finding ways to link arms to do what needs to be done to really care for those in the world who need something. And kind of tied to this is this love of mine to share stories about often very, very difficult things: human trafficking, poverty, lack of access to medical care, to water, to basic kind of needs for survival, but share stories in a very human, kind of generally one by one way, so that a cause like human trafficking becomes very personal. When you hear a story about someone, you see their face, you hear their voice, you hear their words in writing, all of a sudden something overwhelming like trafficking, where there's statistics of millions that are impacted, it's like that cause becomes personal when you hear a story of the one. So then that loops into calling, loops into community, loops into ways to very practically, tangibly care for one another. And so we try to plant seeds of how to do that and make it possible for everyday people to have that invitation to come and be a part, to make a difference, and to do that together.
I love the passion and the purpose here, Sarah. In the Western world, communication is always about, what am I getting from this? What do you want me to do? That's where the communication starts. In the East, communication is people want to know why. And so I come from a world where storytelling and the why is what drives the conversation. What we do is secondary and we can figure it out as we go. But we are sitting in a Western culture that needs to start with the what do you want us to do? And so bringing that storytelling into it and giving them perspective so that the why is never forgotten. That is so powerful and so masterful. And you're actually, in so many ways, bridging the communication divide that cultures face. So, as we build on what you just said, what are you seeing in terms of how people are resonating with this approach? And what would be a success story you would love to share with us?
Hmm. For me, I would say how people are resonating with the approach is one of two ways. Either someone has had the gift of having a sense of being here with a unique, one of a kind way to make a difference, and whether that's in the ways that they volunteer outside of their job, or their calling is their job in a vocational manner. Maybe they have been in that space for their whole life. On the other side of the trajectory, it could be someone that may have been a little bit dampened or hidden or not quite fully expressed in their life. And so either way, the gift of community, the gift of story. And when I say story, we do that through, I write books. I've been a part of film collaborations. I love being in conversations like this with kindreds who are looking to amplify one another's voices and stories. Anyway, so whatever is the medium or the path of the story, it's looking to spark that aha, or spark a connection so that maybe the person who has been fully living their passion, fully about caring for one another for their whole lives, finds a connection, a collaborator with whom, like this, the story gets rippled, gets amplified, gets expanded through the power of collaboration and connection. And then the other piece is, one of my favorite things that I see happen is in the life of someone that thinks maybe the difference making or the change making is meant for someone else, and they don't yet have a part in a community, a collective of people who believe. We each are each of our stories, kind of like a prism, gets brighter, um, gets to be manifest in the world differently, but that we each need to be a part of the conversation, of the activism for the prism to be fully expressed. So I equally love both of those, seeing that, witnessing that in the lives of people. In different ways, whether it's the lit up or the not quite lit and then the spark goes off. Um, and I would say a practical story, an example of that is kind of a ripple from how this happened in my life. One of the first books that I wrote was birthed out of an invitation that a friend of mine gave me to host a community of sisters from Nepal. And this friend of mine had been working for years on a film, and the film was in the process of kind of on a global film tour. And he asked here in Denver, Colorado, if I would be the global tour stop for this community. And so he said, Sarah, you love community, you love stories. Could you host this beautiful, there were 8 Nepali sisters and brothers. Could you host them at your house? Help me put together some events in Denver and at your house, and just have an opportunity for these dear, amazing people to share their stories. Um, 3 of them had been trafficked, so that was my first cause becoming personal around human trafficking. And through the course of this week, we just developed this sense of family, of connection, of deep, profound love. And it's like the roots of our friendship went deep very quick in the course of this week. And during one of our times traveling to an event at a university to share some stories, um, we were in the car and they just said, "Hey, Sarah, stop the music. We have something to say to you." And they said, "We have been looking for someone to write our story for 5 years, and we think you're the one. Would you write our story?" And the book that was birthed out of that invitation um, is the first book written about this people group in Nepal called The Badi, Badi. The book is called No Longer Untouchable, a story of human trafficking, heroism, and hope. And it was a 7-year journey. So the spark that went off in that moment in the car took some time, as many deep works tend to. It took lots of collaboration, lots of sisterhood. And but I mention that because I just think so often um, the stories that are meant for us to birth in the world do not often get ignited except in community and sisterhood and brotherhood and connection and collaboration and just in real everyday life. And that's what I look to plant seeds for in the lives of anyone and everyone I can.
Wow, that is amazing. I literally got chills listening to you share that just now. And how completely amazing that just a little, hey, host this group of people turns into a book and a voice and a platform for these people and people similar to them around the world to have that voice. It's just really remarkable. So you describe kind of these two camps of people who already basically have a spark. They know they have a spark. They're trying to move it forward. And then people who are just kind of going about their everyday lives, not really thinking that they can make a difference in the world. Or maybe they're just completely overwhelmed. They're just trying to keep a roof over their heads, trying to keep their baby's diaper changed, that sort of thing. So, in this category of people, how do you help them see that they can do a little bit and that a little bit is okay? And then maybe who knows when that little bit might turn into something more. But how do you get them to be okay with I can do something and and it can be a little thing and that little thing is okay?
Yeah. I would say that question, Robin, is at the heart of my greatest joy, at times conundrum, passion, because what you're talking about is at the heart of what makes life beautiful and complicated and overwhelming and can set up things like comparison or overwhelm. And so I would just say part of my path with that is tied to story. My first book that I wrote um, was the heartbeat of it was to try to create experiences that are tied to story and tied to what I call soul care or places of pause, planting these seeds in everyday life to say, if we are waiting for the opportunity to travel to Nepal, to give $1 million, to do the big grand thing, and if that is the only way that we measure or count ourselves worthy of being part of the gift of true love and care and compassion and making a difference, then from my own experience in my own life, I end up living kind of shackled and kind of silenced and not very radiant, because I am stuck in a limiting belief that it's meant for someone else. It's meant for the millionaires, or the people who have big, charity nonprofits. So for me, it was tied to my own journey of walking through that as a young mama, so tired, barely able, the shower by the end of the day was the win, those sorts of things. And having and feeling a little lost at times when my babies were little, around, my gosh, like making a difference and being aware of things outside of my little tiny overwhelming household seemed like an impossibility. But for me, tied to my faith, tied to my own places of pause and practicing, um, digging my roots into God, into a community, into scriptures, into poetry, into music, into things that kind of lifted my gaze out of what was overwhelming, and was that reminder that there were things that were both bigger than me, but also inviting me to be a part of. And depending on the day, taking a step or a leap towards that. And really, sometimes from the outside, it didn't look like change making. It didn't look like something that would make any headline. But in my life, the headline became, no, I am loved. I am a part of a community of belonging, that that everyone on the planet has value, that I have value. And then as those kind of seeds of love and belonging kind of started digging deeper roots in my life, then I started finding ways, big and small, to into that kind of inspired action, into, I am gonna do something today to love, to care for, to have that sense of that being more than enough, and really what life is all about. And so I began writing about that, and vulnerably, just sharing my journey and inviting other people into their own unique journeys, um, and trying to create very simple practices and rhythms and ways to try that out and kind of build a life individually and collectively, to truly be committed to making a difference in a way that is rooted in our unique everyday lives.
That is such an important introspective journey you're talking about, Sarah. And not everybody is ready for it, right? A lot of times, not everybody, but some are ready, some are willing to do that introspective work, and others are very afraid of being vulnerable. And they can't let go of the ego and the positioning they have to have with the outside world, that they cannot allow themselves to go there. Do you find that any particular type of person is more open to this? Or what advice do you have for people who are afraid to even look inside, to courageously take that step forward? Because I am personally a believer that the most important relationship every one of us is going to have is with the divine within each of us, our soul, our spirit, right? And how can you, based on your experience, inspire people to take that step, even if they are not willing to open that door?
So, what I have seen in the life of people around the world, and when I say this, this is why I love the global part of our stories, even though maybe not all of us are called to what will appear global in nature of work. But what I love about the global stories is when we start seeing certain truths or certain experiences being true in a way that kind of has this thread that goes through culture, gender, language, socioeconomic status. And when we start witnessing, oh my gosh, look at what happened in the life of that person halfway around the world. And I'll be specific. Let's say the book I wrote on human trafficking, the one of the goals of the 5 heroic storytellers, 4 of whom who were trafficked, in our book, one of their supreme goals was to plant seeds of hope that if the 4 women in the book who were trafficked, they all escaped or were rescued. And one of the reasons they wanted to tell their story was they wanted to say to someone, though you may have never been trafficked, you may have a time in your life where you feel stuck, where you feel enslaved to someone or something, where you have no way out, like they were in a brothel in India. And what they wanted to do was say, if what if one of the gifts of our story is to have a reader read our story and say, oh my gosh, if they can do it, so can I. Or look at how this woman, though she speaks a different language, has a fundamentally different story, is sparking something deep in my heart, deep in my spirituality, deep in my thinking. And now all of a sudden, my story is lit up, or my story has been shifted, or my perspective on hope is now brightened. And so what I want to say about your question is, again, I believe it comes back to a couple of things. Number one, connection with one another in these stories that we're talking about. Number two, my fundamental belief that sometimes the spark that ignites hope or ignites inspiration is a very little one. And sometimes it just doesn't take that much. And so this sense of no matter how dark the day, can we lean in and look for the spark in one another, and not give up the hope of the spark in us, and find ways to be the spark in the life of a stranger in the grocery store, someone that cuts us off in traffic, uh, a a child in our own household who's waking up on the wrong side of the bed, a friend in need. Like, if it's about the everyday and our who do we bump up against that we can be the spark for and receive the spark from. And I really do believe the last thing I'll say about that is I believe it's like a good kind of drug, what we're talking about in terms of these seeds of love, these seeds of connection with one another, these seeds of leaning in and being curious and asking, like, what's my part? And I have seen it around the world, and I've experienced it in my life. It's like once there is that taste of what that kind of life is like, there is no going back. There's no going back, because it's like, oh my gosh, look at what is possible together. Or look at what is possible when I cultivate rhythms that are going to sustain hope, that are going to fuel love, that are going to remind me that even though we might look different, there is this fundamental sense of humanity that connects and unites us and helps us lean in to say, okay, how do we celebrate the differences, and how can we truly love each other as sisters and brothers, as a global human family? And I just believe once that taste is on our tongue, we don't go back for the stale, bland life that tells us we are alone, that tells us that only difference making or only loving and caring in ways that light up the world are for other people. That it's for everyone. And I just believe that fuels us to take more bites and feast ultimately on that kind of life.
This is totally amazing. And as we say every time, the time has flown by. This has been just a remarkable discussion. We want everyone to know how they can get a hold of you. So please share with the audience how they can get a hold of you and learn more about this wonderful organization and movement that you are part of. And then do you have a final golden nugget that you'd like to share with the women and the people who will listen to this when it's released?
Thank you so much. Yes, we have a website, seedsofexchange.org. We have social media channels on Facebook and on LinkedIn and on Instagram at Seeds of Exchange. I would love for you to email me personally and share your heart, your story with me. My email is sarah@seedsofexchange.org. And in all of this, our passion and goal is definitely to create a movement, to create a community of people around the world who are connected, are sharing stories, are finding ways to collaborate. And so I welcome whatever way you love to connect, please reach out to me. And in terms of a golden nugget, I think I would love to just plant that seed that we have talked about of this invitation that's this threefold invitation to live to cultivate practices, to cultivate thoughts, to cultivate conversations that fuel you to believe and to be rooted in the fact that you are loved, that you belong in terms of finding ways to connect, collaborate, commune with one another, and that there is a community around the world that is so rooted in this sense of global human family and belonging, that once you get in that stream, the world becomes this beautiful community of ways that I do believe will ignite your own life. And the third thing is lighting up your unique and one-of-a-kind way to make a difference in your neighborhood, in your home, and in this global human family. So love, belonging, and making a difference are seeds that once you taste them, I believe the feast is one to nourish a life until our last breaths.
Thank you so much, Sarah. This has been a phenomenal conversation. We appreciate you sharing your purpose, your passion, and your journey. And we know for a fact that our audience are going to love your message, and especially the notion of bearing witness to your purpose, your journey. We're bearing witness to other people's purpose and journey, truly helps shape communities that are sustainable. And Robin and I truly believe it doesn't matter where we come from. Just the fact that we both show up, given our differences, to create an environment that is truly nurturing and embracing is partly to show people through visual and lived experience it's possible. We don't have to be the same. We don't have to come from the same place. And we love your message. It sits in the sweet spot and a resonating place of what women investing in women is all about. So thank you. Thank you for being part of this community. We welcome you into our Women Investing in Women global community and to our community out there. Please take a moment. The year is ending. The dawn of a new year is just around the horizon. Take a moment and bear witness to where you are, where your journey is, where you are going, and what is going to shape you to ignite that spark in you. And then step into the arena and lift each other up and help others find their own spark. Doesn't matter what faith we come from. In every faith, you light one candle and turn around and light another person's candle. To me, that is what life is. That is what Love is, and that is literally the message Sarah is sharing today. So be that spark. Be the spark for yourself. Be the spark for those around you. And when we each show up that way, there is no doubt in all our minds that we're going to build a world that holds space for each other, bears witness to each other, and supports each other in a very loving, caring, and compassionate way. So go out there and make your presence matter, make your presence count. And in the process, show the others that they count as well.